We're looking at the whole ruckus between the Chinese firm and, you know, Nigeria, because ultimately it was an Ogun State ball, but Nigeria guaranteed it, and here we are now. And quite frankly, it's not looking good. Nigeria, it's like it's taking one on the nose. Very, very embarrassing. You don't need to be any kind of a forensic analyst, I beg your pardon. You don't need to be a forensic analyst to know that the ball was dropped multiple times. But the big issue, and I think that's important for going forward, is that nothing seems to, it doesn't appear that anything is going to be done going by previous antecedents. It doesn't look like anything will happen. There are those who are being quite harsh. Maybe we don't know enough about it from the outside, who are saying that, and you mentioned that, the two governors involved before this third one, former Governor Daniel, he's a distinguished senator now. Very little is being said about the matter. And then
his successor is also a senator.
His successor is also a senator. And it just sort of beggars belief. So you don't really know.
And the current one may also end up in the Senate.
We don't know the ambitions.
No, I'm prophesying now.
We don't know the ambitions of Governor Abiodun. So we don't know. But it really is a frustrating thing to this matter about we are not held accountable for our actions. Look, even if it is vicarious liability, even if you didn't do anything, that's what the law is. You are responsible vicariously, and you didn't do anything, yet I was listening to Okwebamu, a US-based Nigerian lawyer, who was also passionate about this, and he says, no heads have rolled, and that's the worrying thing.
And none will roll.
None is likely to roll.
No. What is going to happen is that they'll be paid, because right now, as at last night, they have filed suits in 8 jurisdictions.
Yes. So it looks anywhere we turn.
In Canada, in Turkey, in Bahamas, and so many of them. So we have to keep defending these actions. Wherever they find assets of the federal government, they're going to, get a court order to impound, pending when the payment is made. So at some point, there's going to be a solution. But I can assure you, no heads will roll. Okay? Because we are a system whereby, and I think Nigeria is the only country that I know, because this is my own country, that when people fail in certain positions, they are promoted to higher positions. So sort of like rewarding incompetence and failure. Do you understand?
I do.
Look at our political horizon. Somebody asked me some time ago, he said, why is it that in spite of the fact that we had changes in our government, the outcome largely remains the same for the citizens? I said, the reason is because the core of your political system has remained the same. All that has been happening is that we've had some upward mobility from down below, but the same people, the same knowledge, the same mental situation, the same approach to solving problems. So you have not injected new ideas. Just like you take our budget, and sometimes you look at the budget, the current budget, and the last year budget, and the only significant change will be the year 2023 and 2024. If you go to the presidential villas budget, you see how all the typewriters or the computers there will be replaced. Hey. When it comes to the small guys, any wonder that the EFCC has got a successful record of prosecuting Yahoo boys by almost 90-something%. But when it comes to the powerful guys in politics, it's not up to 10%.
But why is that? Because we're using the law. And this is the question. It's almost like a rhetorical question, I know that I'm asking.
So you have seemingly two judicial systems. One that is very efficient when it comes to the weak, the lost, and the vulnerable. And then you have another one that is weak when it comes to the powerful and the rich and the influential. Because first and foremost, they have the resources. They can hire big lawyers. they can go through big political heavyweight who can go out and influence
and lobby,
people
lobby on
in our different institutions. They have the power and the wherewithal to ensure that the prosecution does not move forward. You know, they can challenge just a ruling on a small part of the case and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And then it comes back again, de novo, to start all over. So this is what is happening.
You know, okay, look, take the Tinubu administration. It campaigned on an agenda of new hope.
Renewed hope.
Renewed hope.
Yes.
So one would have been naive to have assumed then that this renewed hope, this will also encompass this kind of thing as well, where justice will be blindfolded. It doesn't care. Present me with the facts and let me weigh them against the law and then make the correct legal pronouncement. Is that something that we, and now I know that we're shifting away from the subject of our conversation, but it's also related. Is that something that we can't really think of in this country, that it can be done? That justice, lady justice, is that what is that her name?
Supposed to be blind.
Supposed to be blind.
Yes.
Blindfolded. So that she's not looking at your face, she's not looking at your countenance. She doesn't want to know your color, your religion, or anything. What are the facts of the case? And where is the law? Put them together. That's not going to happen in Nigeria, right?
So, you know, in every trial, there's this assumption that the parties before the judge are the ones on trial. No, that's not correct. It is the judge that is on trial because the parties know the truth. It is the judge who doesn't know the truth.
Yeah.
And so you have a situation where the judge can be influenced with all kind of things. Now, talking about renew hope, there has to be an assumption that there was hope in the first place before you can renew it. And a lot of people we argue that they didn't see any hope, not to talk of renewing it. But you must also understand that the country is a system and it's been entrenched for a very long time. Now, no new government is going to come all of a sudden and uproot that system, because the most difficult thing to bat is a cultural change, where you are taking people from point A to point B within a period of time. There will be resistance in the system. But you see, when you have a leadership that is courageous and has got clear vision about what he wants to achieve, that change must happen. This is what I say to people. One of the problems is that leaders don't form like a preconceived vision about what they want to achieve first, before they now begin to recruit those who will help them translate the vision into reality. So when they take over political power, then they begin to select people based on political considerations.
So it's not like a prepared team.
Yes. And then what most of these guys make up for is that they all want to be in the good books of the president. They cannot even hold a press conference where they will speak to the fact that certain things were done based on their initiatives. You will hear them say, with the cooperation or the direction of the president. Some of these things the president don't know anything about. But if the president is all knowing and all doing, but it doesn't mean you.
Yeah, exactly. But it is the form. You hear it in government, in Lagos State. Anybody sits down with you, is going to be given credit.
It's the governor, everything about the governor.
Thank you because of the assistance of the governor, the support of the governor, the initiative of the governor, and it works like that for the president as well. So this also is a cultural system. Now, nothing is going to change that, I don't think. It is a form that we have.
Yeah, and you know the problem is that
we have.
People appear to fight harder for retaining their position than accomplishing things that will help the president and the country. Okay, so even when they say that things are not going right or things are wrong, they cannot bring themselves to speak to the president about it. Let me tell you a funny story. A former Nigerian president attended the African Summit in London, and he was dominating the talks. He wouldn't allow other African leaders to speak and all that. And then some of his aides, led by a former Senate president, decided that it was time to go to the president and tell him what they have observed in the course of that summit. And so they said they were going to tell him to please allow others to speak. He should stop dominating the whole conversation. You know, that there was this high resentment by other African leaders against him. So when they got to the hotel, he expected that his colleagues who had agreed with him that they were going to talk to the president would step forward. He tried to raise the issue, and nobody spoke. So, rather, he observed that they all joined in praising the president. Oh, the locomotive of West African trade. Oh, without you, Africa will know where to do. So,
but that happens everywhere in our society.
No, not everywhere.
Even in companies.
Well, I think it's unique to us to some extent.
Yes.
Because I was reading this book by George Stephanopoulos, The Situation Room, you know,
yes.
President in crisis. He made mention of the current Secretary of State, Tony Blinken. Of course. And then when I saw that picture on the raid on Osama bin Laden, you will notice that the current Secretary of State was an Undersecretary of State in that picture when Obama was president. So you see this continuity. And the man said that the Achilles heels of democracies all over the world is that when you have a leader that is too strong, that those around him are so scared of telling him the truth, it never works well.
And people and leaders need to be strong.
Yes.
Those that are their people need to keep them strong.
Yes.
And so they're busy intimidating the whole setup, although that is not the word that is being used. It's supposed to be respect, it's supposed to be reverence, it's supposed to be, you know, not interfering with the leadership, taking your cue and all of that.
I don't expect a minister to walk to the president and be rude to him.
Of course not.
That's not allowed. But I expect the minister to be able to speak to Mr. President with candor, you know, with faith and conviction that he is doing the right thing by telling Mr. President the true situation of things. The late Senator John McCain said, courage is not the absence of fear, but your capacity to act in spite of your fears. Yes, you run a risk.
Of course.
In this part of the world of Mr. President saying,
there's so much on the
he's
line.
always the one bearing bad news. He's always the one, you know, not praising me and all that. But deep down, he understands. Do you understand? Like now, who does not know today in this country as we speak that things are not okay? With majority of our citizens, things are not okay. Right? I don't know if you fall into that category, but the reality is that when you hear some of these top government functionaries speak, they tell you about how things are going so well. And that's the message Mr. President gets.
Well, not necessarily that it's going so well, but there are challenges that are being assiduously addressed. And so from their point of view, that is the truism that they know.
Well, yes, but look, you can sound aspirational, but you don't detach from the reality.
Okay.
So we are at point A.
But in fairness, you remember that Mr. President himself will say that I am aware. The president tells us that I feel your pain.
I understand that.
So at least that much is getting through to him.
Yeah, but you know what? You can comfort people. You can acknowledge their pains. But beyond that, they want to see action on your part.
Yeah.
That will act as a relief to that pains. So when you hear about the government saying we're giving out 570 billion hardship allowance or hardship assistance, and then you hear some governors coming out to say we did not receive any money. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Or that the money was, so, it wasn't a grant from
it wasn't a grant. It was from a grant from World Bank, and it started in the last administration. So you see this deficit of trust in what the people should be believing.
You know, to be able to speak, well, I think that other trite expression, speaking truth to power. To speak truth to power, whether from within the internal corridors of power or even close to it, it's tantamount to bringing on something of a sort of a revolution. And they say without that, things will not change.
It's a risky endeavor in our part of the world.
Yeah.
But then, if you are a man of conviction, you don't have to go insulting anybody. Okay, look at what is happening in Ogun State. Okay? If you had an attorney general of the state, and we are not privy to the undercurrent, but if there was an attorney general of Ogun State who could walk to the governor and say, Mr. Governor, this is going to be an embarrassing situation. If we don't do something about it now, you know, or even probably threaten to quit the job if nothing is done about this, because this is going to blow back in the future.
Yeah, but people, you know...
But you will not have people in this part of the world who will take that risk.
And that is why, for example, unfortunately, you have cases of Nigerian public officials tried within the country, according to the Nigerian system, and are discharged, acquitted, and then let a foreign jurisdiction get hold of that same person with those same charges. And some of them are still serving their sentences now, a sentence that could not have been imposed. Not only that, in the case of, in one case, former President Obasanjo actually wrote to the UK pleading on behalf of the person that, look, I can vouch for him. So it begins to show you how that matter might have gone had that matter been wholly here.
So to buttress your point, a former governor in this country was discharged of 53 charges.
Yes.
By a court in Nigeria because he couldn't find any evidence to buttress or to support those charges. That same governor, former governor, went to London, was arrested, and on 3 count charges. 3 out of those 53, he got convicted and was jailed. So that, I mean, that speaks clearly to the difference in the strength and character of the judicial system that we have. I don't know if you have seen a video that is trending from retired Supreme Court Justice Auta, where she talked about the corruption in the judicial system vis-a-vis the registry of the court, the way the judges emerge right now in the country. You know, and she talked about the fact that after the Supreme Court gave judgment, they removed former Governor Ngige and brought in Peter Obi. Well, the political class just realized, oh, so the court is this powerful. The court can make anybody governor. The court can remove someone from being governor and all that. And so this quest for trying to get people, their sons and daughters and friends and people they could use into the judicial system started. Now, the last swearing of some justices of the Court of Appeal, you saw how it turned to a political gathering. All politicians of note were present there for their swearing-in. And Professor Chidi Odinkalu said they were there because they were paying forward to these justices to say, listen, the day you were sworn in, I was there. Go back and look at those pictures. So we belong to one another. I need your help. So the president has his job cut out for him.
Well, these are very, very subtle. I understand what you're saying.
He has to break up the system completely. Look, it's not going to be...
In fairness, everybody does that. I think, for instance, when it comes to the time of the U.S. president to nominate justices of the Supreme Court, they tend to look for justices that they know have a particular bias, framework. When I say, maybe bias is not quite the word to use, but leaning.
Yeah, but that's peculiar to the U.S. I mean, justice, like you said, should be blind and should not have political leaning. But in the United States, you have justices who are conservatives or liberal in values. And so if you are the president and you are a conservative, you'll be looking for conservative judges. Like you saw how Trump put 3 justices on the court, you know, from Neil Gorsuch, Amy Barrett Conner, and then the other guy that had problem during his clearance. So
the name escapes me now.
Yeah, and all of them, of course, they must come with specific value system. They must be conservatives. They must believe in small government. They must be opposed to abortion rights and all that. And that was how they were able to throw out Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
One had been law in America for 50 years. And when it was time for Biden, he had to look for Ketanji Brown, you know, because he believes in our own value system. But that's not what we have in this country. What we have here is that the justices are appointed strictly on a quota system and on seniority, you know. And that's why they are also very careful. Since the process that gets them to where they want to go is a political process, they also don't want to do anything that constitutes a risk for them at the lower court system. Because when you are constantly going against the government in your rulings and judgments, chances that you will rise to the top is very slim.
And so all of these layers, all of these subtle layers that you've been speaking about, they've all come together to contribute to the situation that we have on ground now.
Yes.
And most especially, you said something in there that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to. Clearly, we're not hearing the truth of where the fault lies in this whole disgraceful affair of the presidential jets because the truth cannot be spoken. People are not proud of some things that happened, either between the first governor to the second governor and even to the third governor, all of whom are going to have knowledge, inside knowledge, but it is not being expressed.
Yeah, but one other thing that stood out from all this is the confirmation that we bought a new jet, in spite of the fact that government denied. You remember when the story broke, I think by Sahara reporters, that the country is struggling with economic woes, the country where the leadership is calling on the people to make sacrifice, has just bought another aircraft. They said, no, it wasn't true. Everybody kept quiet. But again, this has shined the light on that issue. That jet happened to be one of the three that was temporarily confiscated. And the information available that was released so that they can take the president to, and hopefully, like we said, the president will be able to rally Ogun State and all the people that are involved to try and find a solution. Because as you said,
it will be paid, the debt will be paid.
Of course, I heard that two of the former governors who were involved in this matter said they will support the federal government to ensure that whatever it needs to do gets done. And I jokingly said to my friend who told me that, I say, maybe they will go to a magistrate court in Ogun State to get an order of court to say that the debt does not exist. Because they had the opportunity to have done everything they could.
Yeah, but they didn't.
They didn't.
And as you said, unfortunately, it is also said, all of these things are quite embarrassing. It is often said that this last-minute syndrome, even when we're preparing
lastminute.com.
Yes, lastminute.com.
That's
preparing for
I'm very strong there. Yeah. I'm very strong.
Well, thank you very much, Kurtis. Kurtis Adigba, legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. And just looking at this whole matters that are arising and some of the aspects of this thing, not all of which can be, quite frankly, spoken about plainly. Simply because you don't know, you won't be able to know. So we've got to leave it where it is. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.